Okay, I need to stop for a second and think about this. Am I sweating?
No, you're good.
Okay. Hello, my name is Mark Jones. I'm 54 years old. I'm from Freeport, Texas. I come from a good Christian family. My mom and dad were married 54 years before she passed of blood cancer. I have two older siblings, a brother and a sister. I started smoking weed when I was 15, as well as drinking beer. Because my parents were used to dealing with that, they reacted in a harsh way, I guess some people would say. And each time they caught me smoking weed, they would act devastated, you know. Ultimately, they would send me to rehab. I ended up going through 3 rehabs by the time I was 17 years old. I didn't have a problem with drugs, I was experimenting, but because of these visits to the rehabs and hearing about all these other experiences with drugs, it sparked my curiosity. So each time I'd get out, I'd try something else like LSD or ecstasy and stuff like that. Because I had missed so much school due to being in rehabilitation, my principal actually advised me to go ahead and get my GED. And so I did get my GED, but then there was just this long time of me hopping around from whatever job I could get for probably about 3 or 4 years, still smoking weed, still doing what I wanted to do, but now I'm not living at home, so I have that freedom, and it was just a constant opportunity for me to get high and stay high. When I turned 23, I decided to go to school for CAD, computer-aided drafting. So I ended up going and moving in with a friend of mine, and you know, hanging out with some of the people that were basically, they were called drag rats. They would hang out on the streets and they were homeless. And there was a freedom about their lifestyle that I was attracted to. Just being able to do whatever they wanted to do without the responsibilities of, you know, that life has, was very appealing to me. And so it wasn't long until I was neglecting my schoolwork, and ultimately my roommate kicked me out of the apartment and I became homeless. And I was introduced to who would later become my first wife. I didn't realize this, but was at the time experimenting with heroin. She became addicted pretty quickly. And I found myself basically enabling her by supporting her habit. It wasn't too long after that before we got busted together. I spent 2 months at a state jail. Well, they didn't realize this, but when they released me, I actually had no home, so I went right back to the streets. I'm on the streets of Austin by myself. It wasn't too long after that word got out to my parents, and miraculously, I'm sitting in the square, which is the Merchant Square, where there's hundreds of people all around me, and I look up and I see my brother-in-law walking towards me, and they had just gotten word a couple hours prior that I was somewhere in Austin, and they wanted to come find me. Well, God directed them right to me, and that in itself is a miracle. So I ended up in White House with my parents, and I stayed there and I got a job at Super Lube. Once Wendy got out of the program, we had decided to move her up with us, and you know, that was shocking to me because my parents are so old-fashioned and Southern Baptist that, you know, this was a very graceful thing that they did, was taking her in, not even really knowing her. And so what happened was we ended up getting married shortly after. I don't know if she felt like she was being pressured into it because of my family or what, but for whatever reason the marriage failed miserably within 2 years. My divorce was very, very hard for me, and the way that I tried to get past this divorce was through drugs, and I was introduced to crack cocaine. Well, This is the first time that I truly ever was addicted to a substance. And when I say addicted, I believed with all my heart that within a couple years I'd be dead, because the draw with that drug is so powerful that once I hit it, that's the only thing that I thought about. And so I was chasing this drug and like instantaneously not even thinking about the divorce anymore. That's how powerful this drug was. I literally thought I was going to die a crackhead. The first time I did methamphetamine, it made me feel like I had woken up from a coma and was finally the person I was supposed to be. I had literally become a different person on methamphetamine and was hiding from friends, thinking that they were literally out to destroy my life or out to even kill me. You know, I was having that classic paranoid episode where I thought that people were trying to kill me, and because of that I just shied away from everybody. Was that paranoid person that was peeping out the blinds, staying at home, paranoid about about anybody coming over, and I just became that guy. And I was that way for 5 years. You know, my dad, bless his heart, he's never even smoked weed and barely even drank alcohol. He did not know how to handle this situation. So the only thing he knew to do was to send me to a recovery program. Well, when I got there, they pulled me into their office and they anointed my head with oil and they prayed over me. And I needed this because not only was I healed from the psychosis just like that, but it's like being in a crowded room where you hear all these different people talking and then silence. So it was me witnessing a real life miracle right then and there, and that just catapulted my faith like nothing else I've ever experienced. I would like to tell you that at this point I stayed clean and sober, you know, after having this amazing experience. You know, I just took off with God and never turned back. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I was dealing with a drug that I basically had a love affair with, and it would just start calling me, and I would eventually give in to those calls. And I know that was a demonic pull trying to get me back, and it always worked. I ended up getting 2 different possession charges for methamphetamine when I was 50 years old. Obviously, with those 2 possession charges, I ended up going to prison at 50 years old, and I was down for about 1.5 years. While I was in the prison, I was with people that were just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I know this now, that the only way God is going to be able to work in your life is when you've reached that place where you're so sick of trying yourself that you have to reach out to Him and say, God, you know, I can't do this by myself. I've tried every way, every angle. I have to yield and let you do it for me. When I was released, I'd love to be able to tell you that I never went back to the drugs, but I did. I went right back to it and was out there for about 6 or 7 months. And when your own using friends are telling you it's time for you to quit, that's a huge wake-up call. And so the one thing that I did differently this time was I heard what they said, and I decided to try one more program and found the House of Disciples. Called them, and unfortunately they didn't have any beds available, but they told me about the Henderson location called Wiseman Life Recovery. Well, for me that was God, because my dad lives right down the road from Wiseman Life Recovery in Chapel Hill, and it just so happened that I was just a few blocks down at the time when I called from my dad. So I didn't have a ride, and I said, well, I'd love to get there, but I don't have a ride. Well, 30 minutes later, they show up They pick me up and bring me back to Wiseman Life Recovery. The difference now with me is I realize that the only way that I'm going to stay clean and sober is if I give my life to God and let Him do a work in me. And for me, that's a 24/7 lifestyle. For me, I have to be saturated in the ministry. And that's what's so cool about being here at Wiseman is I have that opportunity to kind of put myself on the back burner, so to speak, trusting in God, knowing that He's going to provide all my needs, and really weighing those wants, because a lot of those wants just kind of fall by the wayside when you're doing God's work, because it's no longer about you, it's about somebody else. And for me, that's just the ultimate experience is knowing that you're in God's will, knowing that you're living in a life of servitude, and just learning to trust in Him while you're helping others. And that's why this is so different for me. It's because my life actually, I feel like, has new meaning. I'm actually excited about my days. Being at Wiseman and being a case manager and being able to help people is the most fulfilling thing in the world. And I feel like that's what people are doing when they're out there chasing drugs, is they're chasing that pseudo feeling, when the real deal is living a life of service and living a life in ministry and living for God. So I just thank you for the guys at Wiseman Life Recovery for giving me the opportunity to tell you my testimony. And I want you to know that I'm very excited about my future here, and I'm not going to move. I'm not going to ever step in any direction unless I know that it was directed by God. So thank you for your time. That's it.